All right. Kent, go ahead and read our mission statement if you would, please. Thank you, Judy.
Mhm. Prisons to Partnerships welcomes individuals and groups to share ideas and resources and make connections that foster a community committed to transforming the narrative around incarceration and reentry for individuals, families, and organizations.
Thank
And
you.
we're having a conference November 22nd of this year, and it's about a time for new thinking, new energy, and new action. So we invite you to be part of that.
The weekend before Thanksgiving
Yes.
here in the U.S.
On
Thank you.
Zoom, Saturday before Thanksgiving, and
Yes.
no cost to attend. Donations gratefully accepted.
Thank you all. All right, Denny, why don't you introduce Teresa for us and we'll get this thing started.
I'd like to introduce Teresa, but so on. Maybe you'd like to introduce Teresa because you met her first, and you could tell the particulars of how we actually got to meet her son Michael. Would you, so on?
Yep.
Thank
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Greetings, everyone. Yeah, I'm with the Buddhist Temple of Toledo, and one day a letter came in from a young man named Michael, and he was requesting some folks to come in and maybe do an in-house meditation session in a facility that he was in. And we weren't really prepared to do that. We didn't have the resources or the time, but I became good friends with him, and we've been corresponding for a little over a year now. And I met Teresa through him. He gave me her email address, and through making some communications with Michael, I've had to get addresses and different stuff from Teresa, and so we sort of have been emailing back and forth to that, and that's how that's how Teresa got here.
Yeah.
And I got here because of Denny, longtime friend. I mean, we were friends for over a half a century,
Yes.
and we were just reconnecting, and found that we had this common thread of wanted to make a difference in the prison system or with prisoners, inmates, or anybody who's affected by the system,
Yeah.
adverse way. That's how, pretty much. Hi,
Okay.
Teresa.
And so, listen, I started writing to Michael, and then Michael wrote me back, and he gave me Teresa's phone number, and he gave me his law team's phone number, and he was totally willing to connect. So I called Teresa up one day and introduced myself and told her that I was part of a group called Prisons to Partnerships, and invited her to come on a Monday night, which she did, and it's been a great experience to actually to get to know Michael, somebody I've never met face to face. And it's really great to get to know you, Teresa. And without further ado, I turn it over to Teresa. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Kitto, and thank you for letting me tell my family story today. I took some notes because there's 20 years of substance abuse and incarceration that has affected our family, and Michael is I have two sons, Michael and Andrew. Michael is 34 years old now, and Andrew is turning 30 in September. And it's hard to not talk about his incarceration without talking about his substance use and when he was an adolescent. Now, Michael grew up in a home. His father has 37 years of sobriety. I met him when he was 2 years sober. And I never was substances. I don't like not being in control. It was nothing I ever liked. So, but you know, for people who are addicts, one thing I think is that they try substances and it's like, this is great. I love it. And or it's trying to, it's helping them with a mental health problem maybe that they aren't coping with in the right way. So so Michael grew up in the sober home. Neither one of our families really had a lot of addiction in it. My husband's family, his aunt was an addict, but nobody in my family was. You know, occasionally there was alcohol at a holiday. But Michael started experimenting like a lot of teenagers do, but young at 12. Michael did everything early. And we suspected it at that time, but we didn't really know for sure until there was a crisis at age 14 after my mother had passed away. And my kids were really close to my mom, and she was 70. It was sudden, and his way of coping, I think, was his use started to escalate. So it was during that time that we found out that he was smoking a lot of pot and experimenting with other drugs. And through his adolescence, we found out that the adolescent system is very inadequate. To try to get a psychiatrist or a therapist that knows about substance abuse in adolescents, it took us 6 months to get him into see a psychiatrist. That's a long time when you have a kid who you suspect is using. We had him assessed at a center that did some outpatient things with kids, and they said he was at high risk for becoming an addict. So we put him in an 8-week program. He was tested every week in that. It was almost like a intensive outpatient rehab. And they recommended community service after that, which we did not do that piece of it. Probably should have. But non-Michael, so in high school, he was using on and off. He was never truant, got A's and B's. He took a connecting class. He worked very well with students who had severe disabilities. Some of the parents were hiring him for respite care at home. He was just, you wouldn't know that this was a kid who was having substance abuse issues from the way he performed. And, he could get A's. He was very bright and he could get A's and B's without doing a whole bunch of stuff. There were a few C's thrown in there and I think 1 D in science, but graduated early, took some classes in college. But at 17, right before his 18th birthday, he overdosed. My husband was in Oregon. He had a seizure on our kitchen floor. My phone was dead. There was a hospital at that time just very close to our house, a community hospital. So I took him there, and the staff were afraid of him, seemed to be afraid of him. They didn't put him in a gown. They just drew blood, gave him fluids. And the doctor told me, if you don't get him help, he's going to die.
Wow. So
because he had, so many substances in his system. So what are you supposed to do? I told him he was seeing a psychiatrist. I asked them to call her. Did he need to be hospitalized? What could we do? Tried to call rehab centers when we got home, and nobody would take him until he was 18. He was going to be 18 in a week, and they would not take him. And it's pretty critical when somebody is at their lowest to get them in like now, or if they wait a day or two, then they're off into addiction brain again and they don't want to go. So Michael ended up, he knew that we would make him do some sort of rehab thing to be able to stay in the house. And so he decided to pack a garbage bag and leave. So he had worked in a restaurant. Had been working in a restaurant. He's also very into food and cooking. So he had income, and he moved in with some of the other coworkers who were also substance users in Ann Arbor. And he did keep in touch. We did end up like bringing his stuff to the house, and we still kept a good relationship and wanted to keep the door open. I would have lunch with him. But by the time he was 21, I got a call. He probably overdosed on heroin at least 3 times at that point. And his boss had told him that he either went to rehab or he was going to lose his job. So his boss ended up taking him to a rehab. And then it was kind of an in and out of rehab for the next year. And he got out of a restaurant job, and he got a job at the school I work at, working with individuals with disabilities who were over 26. They had a program there for 26 through adult that he was working with those kids in the same building that I worked in part-time. I worked in 2 buildings. So, and one day I was at the high school and I got a call from Michael saying that he was in jail and that he had stolen some money from a restaurant, but the police told him that he was going to be released the next day because he had told them the truth, and he would be released the next day. He wasn't going to be released the next day. He was stoned when he talked to them on Xanax. He had been on a Xanax binge, and the car we had loaned him had been impounded. I went back to the school to see if it was still there. They arrested him at my school that I work at. That's sweet, right? So he talked to the police. They had told him, if you tell the truth, your mom can pick you up tomorrow. You can go home. And he was being charged with 2 armed robberies. So we hired one attorney for the arraignment, and he told us, you need a criminal attorney because these are both up to life in prison sentences. So we hired another attorney, had to give him $25,000 up front. Fortunately, my husband had just changed jobs and had an investment in this company and got a payout for his investment. And we had that $25,000. I don't know what people do when you don't have that and you have this immediate need, because even getting a loan doesn't happen that quickly. But we did get the police report and found out what really happened. And Michael had called an order into a restaurant, a Thai place, and ordered his food, went in, paid for his food, sat down, was talking with another customer, and then when his food came out, he went up to the counter. He placed an airsoft gun, which looks like a real pistol, on the counter and said, "Okay, now give me the money and my money back for my food and the rest of your money in the register." And this woman said back to him, "You're kidding, right?" And he said, "No." And then she said, "You must be really desperate." So then he picked everything up and said, "I am," and left crying. That was armed robbery. He didn't take anything, and up to life in prison. The next day, he went to a sushi place, and this time he pointed the fake gun at the woman, airsoft gun, but you couldn't tell the difference. So the people had to have been terrified, and he did deserve to have a punishment for this. Probably not as harsh as he did, but the punishment was what it was. That's another part of the story. But the woman started to take money out of the register. When she had $100, he said, "That's enough," and left. So, the intent to really harm these people on his part was not really there, but it was 2 armed robberies, which are 2 violent felonies, which follow you, we found out later, for your whole life. It impacts your whole life, especially if they're violent felonies, because you cannot get any kind of licensed job. He couldn't get life insurance. His interest rates were higher. And this is after he had completed prison, and it just stays with you for your life. And we didn't know that. So he, we had the attorneys, and he had maybe 4 4 hearings. He pleaded guilty. The prosecutor in the case was probably the worst one we could have gotten. He seems to not, I don't know if they're all like that or we just have the bad luck with prosecutors and judges. The judges was a good judge and actually had said that if he could have done a lesser charge, a lesser sentence and charge, he would have. But based on the circumstances of the case. And we were told that in the county, Washington County that we live in, it's the only county where the charges would not have been reduced because they had this tough on guns law, or they were getting tough on guns. Any other county, his charge, one would have been dropped and the other one would have been reduced. And he probably would have spent a year in jail, but he was in jail 5 months for a plea and then was transferred to Jackson, Michigan for their processing center, which is a horrible, horrible place. They call it the Hive. They're in cells that they can, do this and touch the ceiling, individual cells, but they can, very barely lay down and touch, and it's like a hive. And they have one phone. They're locked up for 23 hours a day, and he was there for 6 weeks. And during that time, we didn't hear from him once because in the hour they have out, there's this line for the phone, and you don't know. So you don't know what's going on, if they're okay. Someone committed suicide while he was there, jumped from the tier above him to the floor. So that was traumatic. And then he was transferred to a prison in Muskegon, Michigan, which is 3 hours from our home. So that was a long drive, and it was a horrible level 1 prison. The warden was 80 years old. The prisoners had, again, control of this prison. And first day he got there, someone was stabbed. He watched somebody being stabbed in the yard. They would they had a gardening program. Footballs would get thrown into the garden with cell phones and drugs in them. They would brew alcohol in the ceiling. He said there was this really small guy that they would lift up into the ceiling, and the inmates would brew alcohol in the ceiling. But Michael made the best of his time. He worked out, he meditated, read a lot of Buddhist literature. He joined the Shakespeare Behind Bars program and kind of established a relationship with, it was a monk too, but I don't know what denomination he was. I want to say he was a Benedictine monk that helped run the program. There was an attorney that was coming down from a federal case that was helping inmates with legal work, but he had a head injury. So Michael would help him edit his work and read his work for him. So, he really, and he made he ended up staying there a year and a half and then went to St. Louis, Michigan, which was 2.5 hours for us. So it was a little bit closer. That was a safer prison. The security cameras actually worked. They had a younger warden. There was not as much violence, and it was a safer place, for as safe as prisons can be, right? So coming home, I think was a challenge for him. Anyone? I remember him telling me, when I get out, I want to have just one cigarette. I was like, Michael, one cigarette's going to be a pack. You can only buy them in a pack, and you're going to smoke the whole pack, and then you're going to be smoking again. I just want one cigarette. And he probably knew I wouldn't do that, so he asked for his brother to pick him up. And he had his one cigarette, and then he was smoking again. So, but he had, 2 years of parole. And during that time, he knew that parole is not helpful, I don't think, to these people. I think that, it's a piss in a cup, make sure you're not using, and do you have a job, goodbye kind of thing. And So he did get through all of that. After a year, he had 2 years, and after 1 year, we were in Colorado and we got a call. He had overdosed at work in the warehouse after work, and just, someone is looking out for, an angel is looking out for him, because an employee had forgotten something, went back and found him. And the police in Saline Saline's a small community, and police may or may not do stuff about things. And so talked to the owner, who's friends with my husband. That's how Michael got the painting job that he was in. Right when he got out, he had a job. And Michael was the one, when he got to the hospital, to call his parole officer, not the police. The police never called. And so they told him, go for an assessment, follow through, and things will be okay. So he did that. And then it was trying to find somebody a therapist that had experience with somebody who'd been incarcerated and had substance use issues, because I think there's all that. You have people that have experience with PTSD, but he said, I wish there were more people that had an actual prison experience who they could talk to and could relate to them, really understand it. So, and when he got out too, he felt like he was trying to make up for lost time, that he was behind his peers, that they were all graduating from college and had good jobs, and here he'd been in prison for 3.5 years. He got 3.5 to 15 years. But he did get out at 3.5 because he had 0 tickets or, behavior issues or drug problem, anything. He had 0 tickets. So I think that there was a loneliness factor too, that he, who can they build relationships with when they get out, because they can't talk to other felons, and other felons are all they know.
Right.
Right. So to me, it seems like there needs to, like, the prison, the parole places should be doing like meetings, for support, for them to talk about their transitions and how they're going, and have AA meetings, or, there's not just AA, there's the Buddhist recovery. I forget what that's called. Something recovery. But he did like that better than AA. So it's just there's not a lot of support, but within a year, Michael, his goals were to have a truck. He wanted to do some side work, and he wanted to buy a house, and he wanted to be in a relationship. So within a year and a half, Michael was engaged, had a house and a truck. So he did meet those goals. His fiance had 3 years sober at the time they got engaged. So she was a good influence on him, because they went to meetings together, not all the time, but they did go to meetings. But Michael, periodically, from the time he got out in 2017 until 2021 was when October 2021, he called everybody in the family. He was putting himself back in rehab. He had been on some herbal thing he was getting from Russia that he couldn't get off of, because he had such bad withdrawal symptoms from it, and he was using other drugs too. So he put himself in rehab in Brighton, Michigan, and he went through detox and then went into rehab. And then he had to leave that rehab because he was having really bad PTSD. It was kind of institutional, and the doors were slamming, and it was reminding him he was freaking out and he had tons of anxiety. It was reminding him too much of a prison. So he wanted to go and do intensive outpatient. So he left, and it was right after COVID, and there was 6 month wait for the intensive outpatient program. And so he was drinking during that time. He started drinking again, and he quit his job because there was a lot of substance abuse among the painters, and he was trying to start his own business. He had a lot of painting jobs. He was doing that. But it wasn't good. We got him in December. Then he drove a work truck into a ditch, and then so we finally got him into an incredible program in Grand Rapids called Sanford House. And this place, every rehab should be modeled off of it. It was incredible. The staff came out to the car to meet him. They were super kind, respectful, patient. In detox, from day one, they saw a psychiatrist, a therapist, and they had medical intervention. He started some other like psych meds from an assessment that they did there from the very beginning. And you just don't see that. I mean, one detox he went to, it was like cold turkey. And if you're having medical problems, you go to the hospital. So, it was just, and then the program, then they're transferred to, it was a John Street house, it was called. This was a mansion that had been redone, and it looked like an Airbnb that you would want to stay in. It was beautiful. Every bedroom had fireplaces, there were hardwood floors. It was a huge, beautiful kitchen. They had a cook. It was gorgeous, and Michael didn't want to leave it. So, and it was very holistic. They brought in different spiritual people to talk to them. They had yoga, they had journaling, they had different types of recovery programs for them to go to see what was a good fit for them. And they had a year of programming scheduled for after. They went from there to intensive outpatient to less outpatient, and it was like a year of programming both for him and for us. So we also were going to weekly meetings, and after 6 months, then we would go to like twice a month, and then we went to once a month. So, and you were with the same group of families, and you got to know them, and you could talk to them. So it was an amazing program, and he did really well and got out, was doing the intensive outpatient. And then I think he started to take some Xanax again, the whole anxiety thing. And this was in March. And his fiance broke up with him, and he imploded. He got a DUI. They found him in a ditch. He left he spent the night in jail, texted me and said, "I'm okay, but I'll call you in a little bit." And then the next call I got was from his fiance saying she had gotten a call from the hospital that Michael was on a vent, and he had overdosed, and they were going to be transferring him to an ICU. So that was not good. That was a horrible experience. We got to the hospital, and they said he was listed as a John Doe. They put us in a conference room. So I just lost it, because I thought they were going to come in and tell me he's died. Why would they put us in a conference room? But he hadn't. And they actually kept him for a week, and he had a big psych eval on him. And he ended up going to an addiction doctor, getting on Suboxone, and going back into intensive outpatient with Stanford House. But the week he got out, he started trying to find another girl. And I think it was his way of dealing with the pain of his fiance breaking up with him. And so that's where Toledo comes into play. He met Kelly on Tinder, which apparently is just a hookup site. and Kelly was 40 years old. Michael was 32, and had two boys that were 8 and 3. So their first date, she comes to our house, pulls up in front of the house, and Michael goes out. So their first date was a weekend at her house in Toledo. Okay, that was their first date. Their second date, Michael was sick. He didn't have a car. He totaled his truck. So second date, she comes and he'd been sick. He had a fever. He was throwing up. She's got 2 little kids. She's a single parent. He comes out to her truck, throws up on the grass, still gets in the truck. She took him for the weekend again. And I'm thinking, this isn't good. Michael says she doesn't drink. She's, which she didn't. She was a heavy smoker, but cigarettes, but she did not, she wasn't a substance user. And then Michael got drunk, very drunk and high one night, and we were trying to figure out what to do. We wanted him to go back to inpatient, and she came at midnight and picked him up and took him to Toledo. We locked the doors on the house. We were like, we're not doing this. And he came back because he had a private job he had to finish up with her car. Our house was locked. He couldn't get his painting stuff. So came to my workplace and I said, you're not coming back home unless you go to rehab. And he goes, yeah, Kelly says the same thing. And so he ended up calling Stanford House from my office and went. Fourth date, she picks him up from rehab and has him move in with her. So he had told me that her ex, she was not married to him. He was actually married to another woman when she had the first child with him. She had told him, and later when we got to know her a little bit, told me that the biological father was very abusive, both to her, to the kids. There were holes all over in the walls and the doors of the house, and she had a gun in the house to protect herself. And I said, you have to get the gun out. Michael's a felon. He can get arrested if you have, the gun. But and he's a raging alcoholic, and so was the woman he was with. So
Teresa,
I'm like,
just a heads up, 15 minutes before.
okay, yep, I'm almost done.
Okay. And Denny, you're not muted.
Yep. So so he was with Kelly. He got into her barbiturates. The use cycle started again. He was very messed up he took her headache medication and was having seizures still. And he had a seizure when he had his first overdose, and then he was having seizures, they thought, from the Wellbutrin he was on. But when he took these pills, he really did a number on his body and his brain. And he went to a neurologist just before he was arrested, and they were planning on, he had left attenuation and he had word retrieval problems. And Michael's got a very high vocabulary, and his verbal skills when he was tested in high school, his verbal IQ was 129 because he was tested and had ADHD. But at any rate, he sold his house to his fiance, and he had $50,000 of equity, but only took 12,000. He sold it to her so that he only got 12, and she could afford it. But they were living off that money, and I think that Kelly, just before the accident, he had $35 in his account, and I think she was done with him. She had lost her job, was not staying employed, and had just started another job the day of the accident. So what happened was Michael was on the phone with Kelly at 10 a.m., got off the phone about 10:20, and they planned to talk again at noon. He was home with Declan, the 3-year-old. And Declan was small for his age. He'd had 2 previous head injuries, one from falling down the stairs and one from running into a table. He also, they had documentation, they were documenting the abuse by the father. And Michael had documented for Kelly that the child had come home and said that the father had hit him in the booty, the stomach, and the head at Daddy's house. So, they were not supervised. They went to these camps and he had been at this camp the week before and was dropped off on that Wednesday night at like 7, and the accident happened at about 10:40 the next morning. So they were playing. He ran, as he often did, through the house, and it was not a big house, and there was a door where there was an addition, and he had gone around the corner, and Michael didn't see it because it happened so fast, but he was right there right after, and he assumed he hit the door and had fallen back on his head. So he had kind of like a whiplash injury and fell back. And Michael picked him up. He said it was like the life went out of him. He stuck his head in the shower trying to revive him right away, and it didn't. So he called 911. Took him to the front door for the EMS and started CPR on him. EMS came, and from the video cam during the trial, you can see him just pacing in the 911 call. He was hysterical. The police come and they start spinning the story. It's like they're, oh, he said he did this, and there was this immediate story that was being spun, and they hadn't talked to anyone but the 911 operator, and not to Michael. They had asked Michael where all the holes came from. They took him in. They asked him to take the door down for them to help them for evidence, and they took him for questioning at the jail. But before that happened, the father had come. Instead of going straight to the hospital, he came and he was threatening to kill Michael. They had to hold him back. So they told Michael, grab your things. You're not going to be able to stay here tonight, because this father was threatening his life. So he was just sitting in the police station in shock. I happened to call, and so I went to pick him up. And I went to pick him up because he said, I'm not hearing from Kelly. She's not talking to me anymore. I don't know why. She said that the hospital, they said this couldn't have happened from a fall. So he's like, yeah, I guess come and pick me up. And so I almost get to the police station, and they said, go to Kroger because we're bringing the father in and we don't want a confrontation between the two of them. Well, in the whole court thing, there was all the other interviews were there, except for the child too, who had said, Michael never hit us. He only put us in timeout when he was really mad. That didn't come out in the trial. The father's abuse never came out in the trial. Whole trial was a fiasco, but he got charged with. So I brought him home. They came, the Saline police. Declan died the next day, and Kelly still wouldn't talk to us. I found out on Facebook because she had blocked me, but I could see the responses, so I knew he had passed. And the Saturday morning, the Sylvania police called trying to get Michael to come back down there, and Michael said, it's Saturday. I need to have my attorney, get a hold of my attorney. I'm not coming down there without an attorney. And so then that night, the Saline police came to our door, and the state police surrounded our entire house. But the officer said, we heard this guy in Sylvania was threatening Michael's life, and we need to talk to Michael to get in the house. And I'm like, yeah, come on in. So they arrested him and took him to Washtenaw County. He was there for about a week, and then they extradited him to Ohio. Charged him with aggravated murder, which is you plan to kill this child, murder, aggravated assault, and then because he had 2 violent felonies, if he was found convicted of any one of those things, it was an automatic additional 10 years on his case. So, so it was awful. he was in jail for almost a year, almost 2 years. The trial was last year, so he was arrested last July, and he was arrested October 8th of 2022. So it's going on 3 years that he's been incarcerated. We had the worst judge you could have had. We knew that going in. She's now retired. She didn't allow one of our expert witnesses. One of them had to do a deposition because she was going to be in India. That was the other coroner who was in there. But just so many lies and untrue things that were said in the trial, evidence that was either not given to us. There's still no record of an interview with the father. It was just a fiasco, and he ended up, the jurors were sleeping during the trial. So the three of them off and on. One was sleeping during the closing arguments, and I found out after that would have been an automatic mistrial if our attorney had pointed it out. But our attorney, I think, he was good in the beginning, but then because he was good, he was a solo guy who had 50 cases when he had Michael's, and I didn't realize that I thought the prosecutor was just going to do it and our attorney was going to do it. Prosecutor had a whole freaking team at that trial that we really needed another co-counsel, and I had asked several times to get that, and I helped our attorney. I found two of the expert witnesses. He found the coroner who ended up she did an okay job, but it was on the deposition, and it was a really disadvantage for us because the other coroner had been present and was ready to try to rebut what she said, and she wasn't there to come back with anything. So yeah, and then the way we were treated in the trial too, I just cannot believe, the victim's advocate was for Kelly. So because why didn't I have a victim's advocate? It's like this automatic implication that he's guilty, right? That she's a victim. And they made us sit in the back of the courtroom and their family front row center. So the jurors, it took 20 to 30 minutes for the judge just to read through what they had to consider for each very serious charge. Excuse me. And 45 minutes, less than an hour, they had a verdict. It was a Friday. We go into the courtroom. You can hear them in the jury room laughing, and before they came out to read the verdict. So they obviously did not take this as seriously. The implications of what they were doing was clearly not serious to them. So, and our attorney really could not present our case because every time he tried to do something, every time he objected, it was overruled. 1 or 2 times did she sustain. This was a 4-day trial. Did she sustain one of his objections? The prosecutor, she would just watch him, and he could barely get objection out of his mouth, and she would say sustained. And our attorney would say, on what grounds? Because I said so. And so he would just kind of try to reword it a different way. Objection. He couldn't even get through the opening statement, our opening presentation without the prosecutor objecting. So we couldn't get a case out, and he was convicted on all counts. There was absolutely no evidence that he beat this child. The injuries matched what he said. There were 7 other bruises on his head, but all of the EMS people said they were in different stages of recovery, and he had been with the abusive father for the whole week before. So it's just to sit through that and the travesty of it. At one point, they had the advocate sitting in front of me, and there was a statistic that she wouldn't let be read by the abuse doctor, and it was that 40% of the cases that they say are abuse are not. And I had read the article that he had put in his report, and so she wouldn't let that come out. So I turned to my sister and I said, 40%. Well, this advocate was sitting in front. She heard me say it. The next day I was told if I didn't keep my mouth shut during the trial that I was going to be kicked out of the courtroom. So, and every day that advocate sat right in front of me. So, you know, it was really awful. But that's kind of his story. Now he's in core civic in East Ohio. It's a 4-hour drive for us. It's on the border of Pennsylvania. He just found out today that he had a review of his level, and he has 0 again tickets, and he just found out he's going to a level 2. Now, Core Civic has 2 level 2s there, and he put down his 4 choices for where to go. We also did our appeal, had the oral arguments in July. It went very well. I think only one judge asked questions, but they were questions that were in what our attorney was going to say anyway, and they each only had 15 minutes to speak. The prosecutor who's doing the appeal came up, and the judge had clearly read everything, and he was lying, and he caught him and reamed him, and this guy was backpedaling. And then he said something that he had said the opposite of, had argued the opposite of in another recent case. So he got reamed for that. And he was unable to really give anything back. So, and our appeal, we had to get special approval because it was longer than, there were, there's more in there than what was usually allowed, but they did allow it. So we won't know for at least, it's past 30 days now. That our attorney said 30 to 60 days. I read it can take 3 to about 3 months. So, but the bad part of that is if we win it and he gets a new trial, then the prosecutor's likely to try to take it to the Supreme Court, which they don't have to take the case, but it's one step at a time, right? So that's kind of Michael's story. I don't know and ours too.
So what's his current sentence then?
Life without parole. Yeah. So we're also hoping that they can at least reduce that. I don't know if the appeal court has the power to do that or what, but yeah, it's horrible.
Thank you, Teresa. Questions?
I don't know if I have a question, but just as a mom of 3 kids who have been through substance abuse issues, as you were telling your story, I remembered that moment when it was like either go to rehab or leave this house, and I'm just kind of reliving a lot of those moments, and so I have just really, really deep empathy for you. And thank you so much for sharing so openly with us. I've got great compassion.
Yeah. Neil.
Yeah, I want to thank you too, Teresa. I don't think I have a question, but yeah, it just really illustrates that justice, yeah.
It's a bit skewed.
It's cute.
But, thank you for being there. I know you love your son, and and telling thanks for telling your story. I hope you get other platforms to share it because I think it's important. That's really all I want to say, but thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I really liked during your talk, you did kind of share about like, God, I would, you know, what you'd like to see other reentry programs look like. So thank you, for sharing the good and the bad and the ugly of the way it should be. Because I think that's really important that we probably don't consider enough is where can we have, I don't know, felon-free meetings, recovery meetings, what have you, so that like you don't, you can't, how do you go to an AA meeting and not violate your parole potentially, like, or what have you, right? So that you've got a some approved place that, like uh, the parole office or something like that, that would becomes a safe space for that to happen. So that was a really some we probably should advocate for more, us and other organizations. Thank you. Kent.
Teresa, I just want to thank you. Having been through the federal system and having a prosecutor who lied to the judge and having all of that, it just kind of affirms for me that I'm not the only one out there. And I just really, my heart goes out to you because I know the police made up stories. They believed the police, and so it's just really it's why I'm part of this organization, is that something has to change and the injustice system has to be fixed because it's really an injustice system. There's no justice. And my heart just goes out to you. And I just welcome your contribution. And I'll keep you in my prayers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Tony.
Well, yeah. I really appreciate your honesty and the story. Um, Thank you for sharing that. I really have a lot of compassion for wrongful convictions. They happen way too much, mostly the responsibility of prosecutors who are interested in winning and police who are interested in solving the case without looking at all of the alternatives. It's very sad, and there's a lot that needs to be done about that. So
I think because of his two other felonies and what they were, it was an automatic. This guy's a violent guy, and he did this. That there was, I think that played a role in it too, because the news report, the detective said felons lie, and he had a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, and he can't imagine, so he personalized it, and then felons lie. Like, okay.
yeah, I mean, that is an attitude that labels people by the worst that they've ever done.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a person here that would like to be defined by that.
No.
No, and it even starts at the very beginning, like an airsoft gun, even though, it's, even way back then, like that could, a lot of those charges from that initial incident back then should have not even moved forward. Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the blessing of it was he was sober. I think it saved his life, because Michael was very addicted to heroin, and it was going to kill him. And the other gift was I got to go and sit with my son for 2.5 hours every other week and talk. How many parents get to do that with their 22, 23-year-old kids? And, we were always close, um, but I treasure that time that we got to know each other even better. So there were some gifts in that. So
Yeah, thank you. Peg, and then so on, and we've got about 4 minutes.
Teresa, just thank you. I had no idea the whole story. Just your commitment, your love, and may there be miracles.
Yes.
But just thank you for your courage, your generosity, and just tell him he's loved by us too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so are you. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
So on. And Karen.
Teresa, thank you so much for coming on and telling Michael's story. Um, after corresponding with him for a year, over a year, we were corresponding before the trial, so I was in the loop on all that, and we've become pretty good friends. Like we're correspondent friends, and I think that that Michael has such a pure heart. You can get it in his letters. Here his letters, his descriptions of what he's going through in there is just so accurate and so from heartfelt communications from him that it's just really moving. Like he's affected my life a lot. You could tell him that when you talk to him, and I really appreciate you, and I just wanted to say thanks.
Thanks.
I appreciate all of your support and all of Denny's support with him too. It's really helps him to get more than from just his immediate family, and mostly, well, his dad does go visit him now, but his first incarceration, my husband couldn't handle it. So now he has started to go visit, so he can handle it. So,
Well, we've only started, so
yeah.
you're not through with us.
And then for some, we'll stop the recording after this question, and when we're done, and then if anyone wants to have some more conversation with Teresa, we'll stay on for that. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Teresa. As you were speaking, it so moved me because I had similar situations that came along with my son, and so it was very very vulnerable, what all the things that you revealed and said, and I really appreciate you doing that for all of us, because we have to say these things. I mean, as ugly and as not pretty as they are, we have to say them, because otherwise nothing's gonna happen, nothing's gonna change, nothing's gonna be done. And I know what you spoke of the justice system, and not justice system, sorry, legal system. It's not a justice system. There's no such thing as justice in the legal system as far as I'm concerned, but anyway, that's my view. Yeah, so yeah, we have to speak out and say these things in order to have them change. So I appreciate you, and I want to speak to you more, and
Okay.
we will get together.
We'll get some time here in just a second.
Yeah,
Here.
yeah.
All right. And then just for everyone, our next community gathering will be September 15th, same time. And feel free to go to our website, prisonstopartnership.org, to sign up for other events. Denny, you'll be our last one.
Teresa, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. And it's really great to hear all of the forensic what's so that happened. I took a lot of notes on what you said. Michael's told me some of it, but some of it I could, it's really great to hear it and get the whole world of it. I have the same experience as so on has. Michael's very pure of heart, and he's told me the truth about himself. So I've told him the truth about myself, and we're becoming friends pretty quickly.
He's an
I'm a
amazing young man. He really
yeah.
is.
So he's a writer, and I'm an artist. I'm a portrait artist, and a musician, and I. I've been thinking about this for a month, and I want to say it out loud to you. Is as a portrait artist, dealing with perhaps one of the most disenfranchised people, which is what Michael is right now in that unit. Disenfranchised, no, not a lot of effective resources, but it's going to take new moves. It's going to take new ideas. It's going to take people changing their minds about things. And as a portrait artist, I keep thinking, what's the possibility of a portrait of Michael? Just think about that, dream about that, because I have the ability to do a dead ringer portrait. So like really very lifelike, very, very much I can capture his being. But what could we do with a portrait of Michael? What could we do with that? And I want you to just think about that. I've been thinking about it for a month, and I want you to think about it.
Okay.
And we figure out a way to do it.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
next time she visits him, she could take a big picture and then
Well, I
send it
got
to you.
lots of pictures. Yeah.
Yeah, I involved him in this idea, but I don't know if he got the letter yet.
I don't think he has gotten it. No.
I'm hoping he'll get it this month. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm writing him another one anyway. So
Okay.
I don't even remember what I say in the letter. So
Again, thank you, Teresa, for accepting Denny's invitation to share your story. We Prisons to Partnerships really committed to the family support and family advocacy aspect of that's really critical to provide a platform for families to get connected and be supported, and to share their story, to be seen and heard. And so thank you for that. I'll again we meet on our community gatherings the second Monday of every month, and